Hello and welcome to this video course on WordPress security. So what I want to do now is to give you some basics. We're going to talk about the video course as a whole, and then of course we'll talk a little bit about the reasons why most WordPress websites get hacked. So this is video number 1, the introduction. So let's talk about the reality. The reality is that most businesses do not think about WordPress security until it is too late. And the reason being is that a lot of times you're just not thinking about that. But the reality is that online business is just the same as offline business. Now, whether you use your WordPress website for running your business or either maybe a informational website, it doesn't matter. As long as you have a WordPress site, this includes that. So you see in offline businesses where criminals will come in and steal their stuff. On the online realm, it's a lot much worse because people have automated bots or automated systems that their goal is to go out there and to hack your WordPress sites. Now, one big question is WordPress secure? And the big answer to that is yes. If you install a WordPress site, the WordPress code is secure. The reason why WordPress sites get hacked is because of several reasons. So what I've done here is for the next videos 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, I'm going to dive in to each individual ways to protect your site. So video number 2, we have backdoors. Backdoors are basically plugins or themes or any type of third-party code that you bring in to your WordPress site. And what that does is it opens up doors, especially if the plugin was not created correctly or the theme was not created correctly or they just are not updated. So we're going to talk more about that in more depth. Video number 3, we'll talk about WordPress hosting and why, if you run a WordPress site, it's better off to have a WordPress hosting web host. And we'll go into the reasons why that is the case. In video number 4, we'll talk about brute force attacks on the login page. Now, this specific attack is generally done by robots or computers, and they're very intelligent computers. So they will guess and guess and guess until they can find your username and your password. And of course, video number 5, we'll talk about different security plugins. There are different security plugins that solve different needs, and we'll go into more depth in that video. Video number 6 is two-step authorization. Basically what that means is you are creating a way to log in and then a way to log in the secondary way. And there's many approaches to that. Sometimes you're using things like Google Authenticator or something else to basically verify that you are who you are. So what you're doing is a lot of banks use this. So you're bringing in what banks use into your WordPress site. Video number 7, we'll talk about hot linking. Video number 8, we'll talk about password protection. So here's what you need. You're going to need to have WordPress web hosting. It's not necessarily mandatory, but you definitely need to have a web host that supports WordPress sites. And of course, most do, but some don't. And of course, last but not least, you will need some money to invest. Better now than later. There have been many companies who have not invested in WordPress security simply because it costs a little bit of money. But if you see your website as an asset, as a business asset especially, or a nonprofit asset that's very important to you, you should protect it. So with that said, let's move on to the next video. Okay, welcome back. In this particular video, we're going to talk about backdoors. Backdoors are basically any type of plugin, theme, or any type of third-party code that is inserted into a WordPress site after the initial WordPress install. Now, this is kind of going to open your eyes a little bit, but WordPress plugins, the more you install, the more at risk you become. And here's the reason why. The reason why is because WordPress, at its core, a lot of times they will come out with updates and major updates over the years to come. And those updates often include security patches. Now, bear in mind that the plugin or the theme. So let's say, for example, that you buy a WordPress plugin or a theme and it hasn't been updated over the years. What ends up happening is it creates backdoors. And if the code has not been created correctly, then it also creates backdoors as well. Backdoors are essentially what it sounds like. You're in a house and your back door is open. So somebody can simply walk in. A hacker can walk in and they can hack your site. They can point your site to different other sites and so forth. So that's just a gist of what we're talking about here. Now, how do you know if a WordPress plugin or a theme is good or not, or is secure or not? So number one, do they update frequently? If they update frequently, that is a good sign. Number two, have you figured that out? Okay, so how do we go about figuring it out? So a lot of times what you can do is you can look at the plugin and you click on View Details. And any type of WordPress plugin that is uploaded to the WordPress repository will have what we call a change log. So you'll go here, you'll click on change log, and you'll be able to see all the changes that has happened over the years. Now, do you need to do this for every single plugin and theme? Not necessarily. The third thing is the company that has built this plugin widely known or well respected? If that is the case, then probably and most likely they have a group of coders that are constantly updating their plugins or themes and or third-party code. If we take a look at this particular plugin, which is Akismet anti-spam plugin, this is actually created by the parent company of WordPress. So obviously they have released a lot of updates. So we can see May 2019, January 2019, November 2018. So it's a good thing when you begin to see updates at least several times per year, or at least once or twice per year over time. But if you go and check out a WordPress plugin and you see that it has only been updated once for the past 3-4 years, that's probably a bad sign. It doesn't necessarily mean that that WordPress plugin or theme has a back door. It just means that the possibilities are there. And it's also, anyways, good to find a coder that has constantly updated their theme anyways. So what you want to do, so let's say, for example, that we head on over to a site called CodeCanyon.net. That's CodeCanyon.net. So if you go to the site, this site basically sells WordPress plugins and WordPress themes. Now, if we go under code and we go under WordPress and we go down here, most of these are most likely to be updated frequently, especially WP Bakery, which is a page builder plugin. Now, as we scroll down, if we just use this as an example, let's just open this up and take a look at it. Okay, so we see that there are a large amount of sales and a large amount of reviews. That's a good thing. But we want to do is we want to figure out, have they updated the site frequently? Or the plugin in this case, or theme. So if you scroll all the way down in Code Canyon, you will see the changelog. So we can see here, it says July 2019, July 2019, May 2019. So that's a good sign when you see that a vendor has updated their plugin on an ongoing basis. Now, if we scroll down, we can see 2018. So most likely this vendor has been going on beyond 2018. So maybe even 2015, but they don't want to include too much of the changelog because the old updates aren't as important as the new updates, or that's something that you might not really want to know. So that's that. And let's pick another plugin. Let's go down here. And let's look at one with no sales. Now, I'm not necessarily trying to pick on a specific plugin. I'm simply just showing you what to look for. And that way you can do your due diligence. So let's just take a look at this one, maybe this one. And there we go. So if we scroll down, there's no changelog. There's no sales. And as we go through here, there's 3 comments. So as we can see, there are problems right off the bat. The demo's not working. How can I trust your product? And so forth. So generally speaking, from the perspective of reviews, most of the time you will have typically 1 out of 100 or even 1 out of 1,000 people will actually leave reviews. But in this case, we can see that it has 0 sales. So that's an example of perhaps something you want to stay away from. All right, so I want to give you practical examples. So this one here, it has a changelog back in 2015. So obviously right now it's 2019. You might be watching this video in 2020. Regardless, if that's the case, I would not buy this plugin. So I wanted to show you this as an example of plugins that are updated constantly and evolving over the years versus plugins that are static, that haven't changed or anything like that. So that's basically what you're looking for. And as you can see, that's pretty simple. So the same goes for themes as well. So if you go under, let's say, this is Code Canyon. So they actually have another site called themeforest.net. So let's go over there right now. And WordPress. So we'll go to the WordPress. And let's apply the same exercise that we applied earlier. So we can see bestsellers. So let's just go ahead and open these up like so. And scroll down. Let's see if they have a changelog. Now, as I am scrolling down, I do not see a changelog. So if you don't see a changelog, you can simply go to google.com and type in changelog, and of course the name of the plugin and the theme. So in this case, we see the Avada changelog. We go to here and let's see if that's what they have. So there it is. If we scroll all the way down to the bottom, we can see that it has evolved beyond 2015. Now, if we scroll back to the top, we can see that there are tons and tons and tons and tons of updates. And that's a good sign. That means they most likely have a team of coders that are coding this particular plugin or theme. So we can see 2019, August 28th. That's just 2 months ago, or actually 1 month ago. So that's the technique that I would use in terms of practical terms of finding a reliable theme or plugin. So you can do the same thing with WordPress plugins that are inside the depository. So if you go up here, you click on Add New, and let's pick one of these. And I did a search on comment moderation, and we can see some of these have a good amount of reviews, but then some of them don't really have a lot of reviews at all. So let's just take a look at this one and click on more details right here. Go to changelog, and we see that there's not really a whole lot of information. Now, sometimes you might not find the changelog on that page, so you'll have to go do a little bit research to go to the plugin homepage and get an idea based on that. Now, not everybody leaves reviews, like I said. So 29 reviews, but 1,000 plus active installations. So you can't really look at this. You have to look at the changelog. So I hope that makes sense. We're going to stop right there before we give you way too much information, and we'll move on to the next video. Hello and welcome. This particular video, we're going to talk about web hosting for WordPress. Now, before I talk about anything related to web hosting, what I want to do right now is to give you an analogy. So let's say, for example, that you're sick, your heart's not feeling good, and you have heart problems. If you go to a general practitioner and you tell them about your heart, a lot of times they may know a little bit if they're really experienced, but if it's a very specific thing about your heart, then most likely they are not going to know. Because a lot of times general family physicians, a lot of them know a lot of information because they see a lot of things, but they don't know in-depth detail about specialized areas. So that's why we have what we call specialists. For example, you have a cardiologist in this case. So what he would do is normally do a lot of tests, and over time, if he can't figure out what you have, then he'll send you to a cardiologist. And the cardiologist you'll go to, and he'll look at your heart, and he'll know exactly what to look for most of the time. And he'll run some tests that are related to the heart, such as an echocardiogram, a treadmill test, and other tests that are related to the heart. Now, if you were to ask the cardiologist about something related to your kidneys that are related to a cardiologist, they may not necessarily know. So in that case, they will begin to send you to a urologist. Make sense? So the same goes for web hosting. And this is the best way to explain it. Now, I start with knownhost.com because this is one of the sites that we have used over the years, and it's great. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that if you host on a specific web host that is not specialized in WordPress, that it's not secure. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is that most of the time, if you go to a host that specializes in WordPress, their team are going to be highly specialized on WordPress. They are going to know everything, or at least everything, about WordPress. So a lot of times if you run into an issue with a plugin, or something's not working on your WordPress site, or you might get malware, or you might get hacked, they are going to know how to fix it. Whereas if you go to another web hosting company that is not specialized in WordPress, a lot of times you'll ask them questions about WordPress and they may not necessarily know the answers to that. And that's based on our experience. Not to say that any generalization or anything like that, that's just based on our experience. So what we have begun to do over the years is simply to move our WordPress sites over to specialized web hosts that specialize in WordPress. So that's the reason why we recommend finding a web hosting company that specializes in WordPress. So I know I'm going around saying the same thing, but I really wanted to drill that into your minds. So with that said, there is a particular web hosting that we have tested called WPX Hosting. They're actually fairly cheap compared to that of other web hosting companies. Now, I want to make sure that you understand, if you have a WordPress site and then of course you have other scripts on that site that are not related to WordPress at all, then you might want to stick with a web hosting company like this, or a web hosting company that is more of a general practitioner / family physician type kind of analogy, if that makes sense. Now, if you simply have a WordPress site, you don't have any other scripts or anything like that that are outside of the WordPress folder, then this is the way to go. And the reason being is for speed, security, and support. So we've tested WPX hosting, very, very cheap pricing. So if we go here to pricing, you'll get an idea of what it costs. So as you can see here, it's $20 per month. That of course may change based on the annual plan, and the $41 for the annual plan. And it gives you about 5 websites and 15 websites for this. Now, I want to say up front that we are in no way connected to WP Hosting. We are simply users of this web host. Now, another great thing is a lot of times you will have to connect your WordPress site to some sort of CDN or content delivery network, such as Cloudflare. But with WPX hosting, they actually have their own version of Cloudflare built in. So instead of having to pay for web hosting plus Cloudflare and all of that, the above, as you know, Cloudflare costs about this amount per site sometimes, or per several sites. So this is why this is a no-brainer. So as you can see, you got this. Now, the nice thing about WPX hosting is that it also offers backups. It offers daily backups. Now, most, of course, web hosting companies, they offer backups, but a lot of times they'll only do once a month or once a week. What's nice about WPX hosting is that it will actually allow you to back up every single day. So if you, let's say, for example, let's pick out a calendar month, let's say December, and you decide that you want to, let's say it's December 31st, and you want to move and revert back to December 12th, because you remember that's around the time that you installed a plugin and maybe the site screwed up or anything like that. So you can simply click a button and it'll revert back to that state for that day. And that's nice because, to be honest, we haven't really seen that with a lot of other web hosting companies. In addition to that, their support is phenomenal. If you have any question related to WordPress, they will actually help you. And if they don't know, they'll research it as well. But most of the time, we've found that they are very experienced. They know a lot about WordPress. So think about this as the cardiologist or the specialist. So this is why we recommend WPX. There are other hosting that specialize in WordPress, such as WPEngine.com. This is a phenomenal web hosting company. They are well known, they are huge, and they run a lot of WordPress sites. Now, one thing that I forgot to mention was that WordPress sites, a lot of times, they will use a lot of server CPU or resources. So that's why a lot of these companies, they have servers and virtual private servers, or they just have an environment that was made for WordPress, whereas the other web hosting companies, it's just a general thing. So you might have to upgrade your plan to a higher plan in order to match that of a lot of these WP Engine or WPX hosting. Now, in addition to that, a lot of these sites will actually offer free malware cleanup. So if you were to get hacked, you have malware, somebody is using your site to redirect to another site, or they've maybe defaced your site, WPX will go in there and they will fix it for free. That, of course, included in your plan. We'll talk about other services that you can use to connect to your web hosting company. Let's say that you have a web host that you really love and you don't want to go this route. We will show you other ways to go about getting your malware cleaned up. But bear in mind that those cost additional costs, such as anywhere from $99 to about $200 per year. So I wanted to give you different options to go different routes, and this is it. So with that said, let's move on to the next video. Hello and welcome back. In this particular video, we're going to talk about how to hide your WP-admin login page. Now, why would you want to do this? Well, if you think about why people hack or how people hack, a lot of times they're using bots to go to your WP-admin login page. So here's what I mean by that. If you go to www.yourdomain.com/WP-admin, that's the page that we are talking about. So you have to go to that specific URL to log in to your WordPress administrator dashboard. So if you have automated bots that are going to that particular page, and then of course they are trying to guess what your password might be, then that's a problem, right? And not only that, they may not guess it, but the fact that they're hammering your website over and over and over again, that's not a good thing. So it could be using your bandwidth, and they could potentially do what we call a DDoS attack and take down your website if they really wanted to. Now, because most of these systems are bots and they're not really a live human being, a good way to get around this is to change the WP-admin. So instead of having WP-admin, you could have anything that you want. So we don't recommend that you use your name, your website name, or anything like that, because those are common usernames that these bots will try to hack. So in essence, what we can do, let's say we have a blog about scuba diving. So we can say something like scuba diving, something like that. And that's it. It's as simple as that. So now what we need to do is get a plugin that does that. There are many different plugins that can do this, but in one particular, WPS Hide Login, it's free. You don't have to invest any money. You can do it with this. This is a really good plugin to use. So as you can see, if we click on screenshots and scroll down, looks like this is in a different language, but in essence, all you have to do is simply click on the settings and then enter what you want it to be. So in this case, it's login, but we don't want that. You want to enter whatever is right here. So if we go back to our WordPress administrator dashboard, right here, it's WPS Hide Login. So type in WPS Hide Login, and that's it. So go ahead and activate that, install it, choose your folder, and that's all you have to do. So now the bots will not know where your login page is, and you don't have to worry about it going to your WP-admin. And it's as simple as that.